Dr. Eric Balcavage. We're back for another edition of Thyroid Answer Shorts. And today I'm talking about the gut thyroid bile axis. We'll talk about this pretty much all week, but there's a huge connection between bile physiology, between thyroid physiology, your bile production, your bile flow, and what goes on in the gut. And it's kind of this vicious cycle, because if there's problems in the gut, that can lead to low-grade inflammatory issues that could change thyroid hormone signaling, that could affect thyroid hormone conversion, that can create thyroiditis. So we're going to cover quite a bit today in this episode, in this 20 minutes or so. I'm going to try and keep it kind of pretty straightforward, but if there's questions or challenges after you've listened to this episode of the podcast, obviously let me know and reach out to me, YouTube, social media, Instagram, or send a message to me in my office, and we'll see what we can do, okay, to help get your questions answered. So thyroid hormone is really critically important to bile physiology and gut function and gut physiology. And I want to kind of break this down, maybe give you an explanation of how thyroid hormone works in a perfect, what we call homeostatic state. And maybe I'll back up even more, even though I've talked about this many times. Somebody might be new to the podcast and trying to understand what I'm talking about. So human physiology typically works in one of two states. And maybe we'll call it three states. Homeostasis is a low stress state where we make enough energy from the food we take in to run all the systems of the body optimally, okay, under whatever stress load we have. The second state is a state called allostasis. This is an adaptive state. This means I'm not generating enough energy from the food I take in to run all of the systems of the body optimally, and there's got to be some give and take. There's got to be some down regulation of some systems, and so we can support the more important systems. And allostatic regulation does occur lots of times with exercise, after exercise, when we eat a meal. There's adaptive changes in the physiology that need to occur under short-term acute stress. Happens all the time. But when the stress is gone, we go back to homeostatic regulation. And we use this shift in physiology to restore balance at the time. I would say the third state, and sometimes I kind of lump these two together, the allostatic regulation and the cell danger response, under a cell danger mechanism, cell danger physiology. This is when a cell is perceiving danger. Something is triggering a threat response at the cell level. This could be bacteria, this could be virus, this could be an organism, this could be emotional stress, this could be hypoxia, it could be nutrient deficiencies. Could be just somebody's thyroid glands removed, and there's just not enough thyroid hormone to support the physiology. But something upregulates this danger physiology. And when that occurs, there's a natural incline or decline in the conversion of T4 to T3. The body, instead of converting T4, the circulating prohormone, to the active hormone T3 at a high rate, it actually slows that down and increases the deactivation. So under cell stress mechanisms, there's a general slowdown of the metabolism of a lot of different cells and tissues. Some tissues actually get upregulated, brain, muscle tissue, at least initially, because under a threat, we need to run, get away, or fight, okay? So when there's appropriate levels of T3 and we're in this homeostatic state, thyroid hormone helps drive cholesterol into the liver. It helps support the liver's production of bile acids. The amount of T3 in the liver determines which types of primary bile acids are generated. And we get a nice mixture of the two different types of primary bile acids, CA and CDCA. And then those are released into the bile ducts, and bile acids are released from the gallbladder when we eat. And the bile acids, once they enter the GI tract, they help us with the breakdown of fat, so we can absorb more fatty acids and into the body for benefits of running the physiology, cell membranes, hormones, all kinds of good stuff. The bile acids help eliminate toxins and cholesterol from the body. The bile acids have a direct antimicrobial effect at the top end of the GI tract. They have an indirect antimicrobial component at the lower end of the GI tract. The bile acids help regulate and manage the tight junction of the GI tract. They help regulate the balance of the types of bacteria in the GI tract. There's a lot of really important things that these bile acids do in this homeostatic state. As bile acids are resorbed 5, 6, 7 times during the time you're eating and digesting your meal, those bile acids resorbed and recycled through the liver, through the gallbladder, but those bile acids also wind up in the bloodstream, and they help regulate thyroid physiology outside the gut and outside the liver. As we tend to eat more, we get to the later end of the meal, the bile acid concentrations tend to change from maybe being more CA dominant at the beginning of the meal to more CDCA dominant at the end of the meal. And this helps with absorption of nutrients. It helps with GLP-1 release. It helps with a number of different factors as part of just the normal bile cycle. So important role, bile acids. Under a homeostatic state, T3 helps produce bile acids. It helps determine the mixture of bile acids. And then those bile acids help shape the microbiome. They help maintain the tight junction. They help maintain the immune system. And the combination of the bile acids, the bacteria, the maintenance of the tight junction, and thyroid hormone all helps optimize normal digestive function and maintain the intestinal tight junctions and keep the bacteria in a more homeostatic state. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, that there is a drop in T3 in the bloodstream, that means there's going to be a drop in T3 getting to the liver. Okay, so T4 is the pro-hormone, T3 is the active hormone. So when there's a reduced conversion of T4 to T3, the liver is going to get less T3. When the liver gets less T3, that's going to result in a change in the types of bile acids. Many times with less T3 in the system, we're going to have more what we call cholic acid production, and that it's going to change the mixture. So we're going to have more CA versus CDCA. And in the short run, this can be very beneficial because the CA bile acids can be more supportive than the CDCA bile acids on the tight junctions. So be more supportive, help maintain those tight junctions a little bit better. And the CA bile acids tend to be more antimicrobial based. So under this scenario, let's say somebody's got, due to life stress, antibiotics, lots of different reasons, they have an imbalance of the bacterial flora, dysbiosis. There's problematic bacteria starting to overgrow. That problematic bacteria is now starting to create some challenges with the intestinal barrier. The intestinal barrier is becoming more permeable. There's more gut-based inflammation, maybe more systemic inflammation that's being driven, and that can result in reduced T4 to T3 conversion. As the intestinal barrier becomes more permeable, more bacteria, microbes, more microbial, what we call PAMPs, some of their antigens, some of their virulence factors can leak out of that GI tract and activate the immune system. Those same PAMPs, pathogen-associated molecular peptides, can be things that actually trigger thyroiditis because these pieces of bacteria or virus or fungi or their virulence factors that leave the GI tract, they should be in the GI tract, they shouldn't be in the body proper. As they leave the GI tract and enter the bloodstream, they can bind to the immune cells and say, hey, this is the organism that's creating the problem. There's pieces of damaged tissue that enter the bloodstream, and that can tell the immune cells where to go. But the thyroid gland also has receptors for these damage-associated molecular peptides and these pathogen molecular peptides. So permeability can start to damage the thyroid gland as well. When we get this immune-driven damage to the gland, we call it thyroiditis or Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And in time, if it becomes chronic or persistent or too intense, it can result in damage to the gland and loss of thyroid gland production. So let's assume we have dysbiosis. That dysbiosis is leading to low-grade inflammatory issues. That's resulting in reduced T4 to T3. Now the person's got reduced T3 impacting the liver, reduced T3 impacting the gut. So they have reduced bowel motility that exacerbates the kind of bacterial overgrowth. But with the change in T3, this can potentially be protective, at least initially in the gut. With the less T3 in circulation, there's less T3 at the liver. We're going to get more cholic acid production. That more cholic acid production is going to do a better job for fighting the dysbiotic bacteria. And it's going to try and maintain those tight junctions, so prevent some of that leakiness. So that's a positive thing. The problem is this is meant to be a short-term defensive strategy. And in time, if we have chronic low-grade, low T3, and we have chronic changes in biophysiology and chronic low T3 impacting stomach acid production and not just bile acid production, but pancreatic enzyme production, and the low T3 is impacting motility, this kind of GI inflammation, chaos, and permeability can get out of control, and we can have lots of signs and symptoms. So we've talked about how T3 regulates bile physiology. We've talked about how appropriate levels of T3 in a homeostatic state can help with bowel movement and motility, how it can help in maintaining the tight junctions, and help regulate the appropriate amount of bacteria, the balance between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria in the gut, or the problematic bacteria in the gut, and even help regulating, because of the way they regulate the bacteria, that can regulate what we call the short-chain fatty acids. And the short-chain fatty acids are what really do a great job in regulating the immune system and contributing to tight junction regulation. So you're a person, let's say, who's found out that you have GI symptoms, gas, bloating, constipation, maybe some loose stools. You have signs and symptoms of hypothyroidism. Maybe you go to a clinician and you're told you don't have hypothyroidism. Your TSH is normal, your free T4 is normal. You don't have a thyroid condition, or at least one that needs to be medicated or managed. You go to a functional or an integrated practitioner, and you get a more comprehensive panel done. Maybe they run your TSH. Maybe they look at total T3 and free T3, reverse T3, maybe thyroid antibodies, and they say, look, you have an autoimmune condition. Your antibodies are elevated, so that means there's immune-driven activation. And even though your TSH and free T4 are normal, you have reduced conversion of T4 to T3 because your total T3 and free T3 are lower, your reverse T3 is higher. And so now the suggestion will be that it might be that you need T3. And somebody might say, listen, your T3 and free T3 are lower. We're going to give you T3. Now, if they tell you we're going to give you T3 because the reverse T3 is blocking T3, that's not true. But with the lower total T3 and free T3, that can have an impact on how you feel. So giving you T3 may be a strategy. If we give you T3, you may feel better, at least initially. That T3 can change some of your signs and symptoms. You can make you feel a little bit better, like a little bit more zip, a little bit more energy. It may make your bowels move a little bit more. Okay, so you may at least feel a little bit better, at least temporarily. So that's the pros. The con side of this is, if we give you T3 and you feel a little bit better, right? 5 micrograms and you feel a little bit better. But the total T3 and free T3 levels don't come into the range. There's a lot of practitioners that keep trying to ratchet up the T3 to either optimize symptoms or to optimize a total T3 or free T3 value, or maybe even a reverse T3 value. But as you start to ratchet up T3, because you get some T3, you feel better, but then it plateaus. So then your doctor says, well, let's give you a little bit more. As you start creeping up over that 5-10 micrograms of T3, we have the potential to have negative consequences. So as T3 ratchets up, as you're taking T3 hormone replacement, whether it's separate T3 or doing it by increasing something like Armour NP Thyroid, there's going to be more T3 in circulation. Your labs are going to look better. There's going to be more T3 in circulation, which is going to pull more cholesterol out of the bloodstream and into the liver. Sounds good, right? There's going to be more cholesterol that can be converted into bile. It still sounds good, right? But more T3 in the system is going to drive more CDCA bile acids. So less CA. Remember, the CA bile acid under a low T3 state, CA bile acid goes up. This is your, hey, defensive, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial bile acid. It is the one that tries to maintain more integrity of the tight junctions. And we look at that under immune inflammatory issues as maybe this whole kind of down regulation may be a little bit of at least short-term defensive response. But if we're in this kind of acute response and we give you T3, so there's more T3 that's going to the liver, that could result in more CDCA bile acid production. That increased CDCA bile acid production can potentially have an immune suppressive effect, okay, an antimicrobial, less of an antimicrobial effect. So if there is dysbiosis there, the bacterial overgrowth might continue to flourish because of the T3. It's possible as well that the increased T3 and increased CDCA could increase more problematic, create more permeability of the intestinal lining. And if we add too much to T3 prematurely, it can alter bile acid physiology. It can have a negative impact on fat absorption. Folic acid does a little bit better job in breaking fats down in the absorption than the CDCA. We can lose some of our antimicrobial effect of bile acids, and we might actually increase intestinal permeability, which so many people are trying to not have or try to heal and improve. So I talk about all of this on this Thyroid Shorts episode because there's nuance to supporting somebody's thyroid physiology. I want you to keep in mind that for the vast majority of people, if you have normal T4, free T4, whether it's because you're on medication or your thyroid gland's making enough, but there's a reduced level of total T3 or free T3 in the system, and maybe an increase in reverse T3, I want you to consider that may not be the actual problem. That may just be telling an astute practitioner the story. It's easy for anybody to say that T3 is low, free T3 is low, I'm going to give T3. That's easy. Anybody can do that, right? But what you're looking for or should be looking for is an astute practitioner who's going to ask the better question, which is, why does the body not converting T4 to T3 at a high rate? Why is the total T3 and free T3 low? Why is reverse T3 elevated? Is this broken physiology or an adaptive response. For the vast majority of people, it is an adaptive response. And some T3 may make people feel good. But if some T3, 5, 10 micrograms of T3 makes you feel good, but it doesn't last, and your practitioner says, and it's not raising the levels high enough, we just got to keep jacking it up more and more and more, and just try and optimize a lab. Oh, I want you between 3 and 4, but you're still symptomatic. So then we're going to raise it between 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 for your T3 levels or free T3 levels. That is not, I don't think that's an effective strategy to restoring health, to restoring thyroid physiology, to restoring homeostasis. That's an allopathic strategy designed to manipulate a blood level into a certain range. Maybe it makes the practitioner feel good, like because they feel like they're changing a lab value. But again, I don't think the lab value is the problem. I think the lab value tells us a story. So if you're a person who's struggling with gallbladder problems, chronic GI issues, if you're a person who's been told you're on your T3 or free T3 are too low and you need to take T3, and initially you felt good, but now you're feeling worse, the higher you go on your thyroid medication dose, your GI tract is more compromised. You have more anxiousness, more anxiety. You have more food reactivity, more histamine responses. The answer is not more thyroid hormone. You don't need to just keep taking T3 medication blindly to make some practitioner feel good. If you're the practitioner and you're ratcheting up somebody's T3 and initially they feel better, but it doesn't last and you have to do more. And now they're telling you I have more hyperthyroid type symptoms and my gut is getting more dysfunctional. Listen to the client. They're telling you what you need to know. That reduced conversion of T4 to the T3 that they see on their labs or you see on their labs is not broken physiology. It is an adaptive response. More's not going to fix it. What we need to do is take a step back and say, do I have enough T4 in the bloodstream based on what the gland is making or what we're providing as medication to support the physiology so that it could convert T4 to T3 if the body wasn't in a cell stress inflammatory response. If that answer is yes, but you still have low T3, low free T3, increased reverse T3, and we still have a low free T3 to free T4 ratio, then we need to ask the question, what do I need to do to reduce the cell stress response to improve the T4 to T3 conversion naturally? And many times it has less to do with thyroid hormone addition and more about looking at the individual client to say what's creating the cell stress, the inflammation that's reducing the conversion, because those same things that are causing the reduced conversion of T4 to T3, the increased inflammation, the increased thyroiditis, are likely contributing to their other signs and symptoms, their gut dysbiosis, their other signs and symptoms. So if we can identify stressors, reduce or eliminate them, make sure we have enough T4 in the system, not too much, not try and manipulate T3 into an optimal range when the patient isn't. I think that gives us the best opportunity for the patient to recover their thyroid physiology, not create more side effects in an effort to kind of placate their symptoms temporarily. So for the clinician, if you have questions, you can reach out to me through my website or through social media, and I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you. If you're a person who's struggling with thyroid issues, gallbladder issues, gut issues, if you're a person who's been told you need to be on 3 or already on T3 medication and you're ratcheting that up and you're not feeling better and you want to have a conversation, just DM me Discovery and my team will send you a link to a complimentary discovery call, and we can talk about what I might be able to do to help you. I hope this helps everybody. If you have any questions, put them below wherever you watch this video. You can send messages to my office email at info@drdrericbalcavage.com. All right, take care.